I feel like diet culture sets you up to never be good enough.
Did you burn 500 calories on the treadmill today? No? Me either.
I mean, anybody can sit with us. We're just really not about diet culture.
But literally, happiness doesn't come from a low-calorie, high-intensity life. I actually do like carrots.
I do too. They're my favorite.
Welcome to the Fit Fueled Free podcast.
So basically, diets suck.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 49. I'm Danielle.
And I'm Jenna.
And today we have the pleasure of interviewing one of my best friends, Amani. She used to work, well, we don't all work together anymore, but me, Amani, and Jenna all work together, and that's how we know each other. And she's a certified yoga instructor and an overall amazing human. So we are super excited to talk to her today. So welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. I'm so excited. Thanks for having me, guys.
We're so glad to have you today.
Thank you.
So, Amani, if you just want to start by kind of like giving our listeners a little bit of a background, just like who you are, what you do, and how you kind of got into the fitness yoga space.
Absolutely. So I'm Amani, like you guys said. But so I've been doing yoga on and off. So my mom actually got me into it when I was like 8. So my elementary school had like electives, oddly enough, and like one of them was yoga. And so she was just like, hey, that'd be a really cool idea. And so it's something that I've kind of liked doing since a young age. And then I kind of fell off a little as I got older. And then it turned into like an outlet for mental health. It more so was something to calm down all the noise, and something that I could be mindful and present and kind of let everything else go. So I want to say it was last year. Yeah, last year. I kind of was just like in a space where healing was necessary, along with trying to figure out like a different career move. So I spent the entire 2019 getting my yoga certification. And then that's kind of evolved, especially with the pandemic and everything. I had kind of one idea of what I wanted to do. And I originally thought, I want to do like be a yoga instructor, maybe eventually open my own yoga school or studio. But I think with the pandemic, it more so took me to a space where yoga is more so for healing for me. So I kind of want to incorporate it more so with mental health now than kind of just like all right, we're going to get our bodies moving. So yeah, that's kind of the space I'm in right now with yoga. Trying to just show people that like the resources you need are within you. Yeah.
Oh, that's really beautiful.
Yeah,
Thank
you. So we always like to ask everyone what their relationship with food was growing up.
Okay.
And you've already shared a little bit about how yoga was a practice, but not so much as a form of exercise. So we'll touch on that too, but I want to start with the food part.
Okay. So in my household, food was like, I want to say food was like art. Like we never like, I think also more so like in the Black community, it's not really, especially during that time frame, it's not really, hey, we have to make sure we're eating super healthy. Hey, we're counting carbs. Hey, we're only doing this. It's really like, hey, we're going to make the most cost efficient. We're going to make this big pot of spaghetti and everyone's going to eat it for like 3 days. So it's kind of like, yeah, it was, I think cooking was kind of like an outlet for my mother growing up. So it was always something different. Food was kind of exciting for us. It wasn't really a thing that we thought too much about.
Did it ever become that for you at any time?
Yes and no. So it more so became that in like my adult life. Actually a little recently. So I want to say in 2018, it kind of, I lost like 20 pounds and I didn't really do it on purpose. Like a combination of stress and like working 18-hour days. And I think during that period, like there definitely was some sort of unhealthy relationship. I don't think it was necessarily me being like, hey, I shouldn't eat these things. It was more so like, I think it was more so the relationship with myself wasn't healthy. So in return, my relationship with food wasn't really healthy, if that makes sense. Yeah.
I think that for most people that is the case, but it's hard to separate that. But it sounds like from such a young age, you've been very connected to knowing, like, some sort of awareness of like what you need to utilize things in your life for you for other reasons.
How do you feel your relationship with food has changed since that phase of your life?
I honestly think that going through my yoga schooling helped. It also helped. I think my relationship with myself has improved. So thus I look more at eating as like nurturing and taking care of myself instead of like a task I have to do or something like that. It's more so like, you need to eat now because this is how you're going to nourish your body. This is a form of loving yourself. This is a form of self-care. So that's kind of the mindset I have now. It also takes the pressure off of, oh no, I need to try and eat this many calories because maybe I want to put those 20 pounds back on. It's now just like, as long as you're healthy and like in a good mindset, then it's okay. Like regardless, it's fine. Even if you don't have those 20 pounds, if you gain them back, it's fine.
That seems a little bit more peaceful.
Yeah, it definitely took time to get there. Especially, it's very interesting to see how different people have different mindsets when it comes to that. So like, of course, people that are heavy into the diet culture saw that weight loss and was like, oh my gosh, you're looking great. And I'm like, no, that wasn't on purpose. And then I have other people that were used to the extra 20 pounds that are like, oh, hey, where'd your curves go? So it's kind of like, all right, you have to figure out what's okay for you and like just kind of drown out all the noise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about your practice do you think helped you find that? I'm sure it's a little bit different for everyone, but I guess I'm kind of asking because I think coming back to your body, if you're in a safe space, is super vital for that healing. So I'm wondering how you would kind of portray that or explain it for anyone who may be feeling kind of similar and wanting to use yoga for that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think for me, it was more so the understanding of yoga and like the background of it and how like in India they would use the practice. And so for me, it was a lot of the background of it and understanding. And then I think it was a combination of yoga and meditation. So with the meditation, like, of course, you're just sitting there and you're quiet and you're trying to quiet everything. And then that's, I feel, when you can hear your body the loudest, when you can kind of check in and say like, okay, how am I feeling? Why am I feeling this way? And it also teaches you to accept and love your body. Because in yoga, there's going to be things that you can't do. There's going to be someone next to you that might be doing it better. And you're like, what the heck am I doing? And I think it just teaches you that this is your body. This is your temple. And so, yes, it might look different. But you just have to accept it. Because if not, that's kind of where the turmoil just stays when you don't have that acceptance and you're constantly comparing to the person who has an amazing downward dog next to you or the person that has an amazing body next to you. You kind of just have to learn to stay over here in this temple instead of, what everyone else around you looks like. So I think for me, it was just accepting my body and accepting that this is my practice. This is my safe space. And so, it also has stages, just like we have stages. So this might not be my body stage in the next 5 years, but like today, this is what we're looking like, and we have to accept that. And yeah.
That is so cool how many parallels that has the practice of yoga to it all comes back to that same underlying, like we have to have acceptance and not compare ourselves to everyone else in order to be able to exist.
Exactly.
That was so well said.
Thank you. I think it's really cool. And I just really think the underlying, and I know you guys talk about it all the time, the underlying kind of role of acceptance is being okay and just like dropping the expectations and also having an okay mental space. Because I think without that okay mental space, you'll never find acceptance.
Yeah.
But yeah, yoga has helped in a lot of different ways. I think it's helped me, you know, like on the physical sense. Of course, it's gotten me stronger and more flexible. But yeah, that's never really been my motivation for it. It's kind of been like hey, sometimes it's a really hard practice, but for that hour or, you know, hour and a half that I'm in this practice, that's all I'm thinking about. I'm not thinking about what happened at work this morning or what I have to do tomorrow. Like I'm here. Yeah. So I think it helps with a lot of things.
Kind of like a boundary set, like your mat is for practicing yoga, not for other things.
Exactly. Yeah. Like whenever I teach a class, I like to tell people, let go of anything that's not going to serve you for this next 60 minutes, because if it's not, what's the point of worrying about it right now? Like that can be an issue for 70 minutes from now, but at least like give yourself this space to be here and present and love on yourself and your body.
Yeah, that's such a nice way to start the practice.
Thanks.
I was gonna ask your mentality around it, like when you first started, like did it circulate around like using yoga as a form of exercise and like a way to work out, or was your mentality always kind of like, no, this is gonna be a way to like honor my body and kind of like challenge me mentally? Because I know there's kind of like two different people can approach it differently, and I do know there's a handful of people who are like, no, I'm doing this, you know, as a way to exercise or maybe like change the body. Others like, no, it's literally a mental practice, and the physical stuff that comes with it is just kind of like an added bonus if it happens.
Yeah, I'm one of those people that I've never looked at yoga as like, this is my form of exercise, just because for me personally, I don't want to mix those mindsets. Like if I'm here trying to better my mental space, I don't want to be here beating myself up because like yesterday I was able to do 4 chaturangas and today I can only do 2. Oh my gosh, what's going on? So for me, it's always been like, yeah, this is my time for myself. This is my time to strengthen my mindset and everything like that. It's super cool if I break a sweat, like I love that, but that's never really been the motive for me, because for me, I feel like that would start to produce unhealthy mindsets around yoga.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. How have you seen the impact of diet culture on this sacred practice that you hold so close to you in a safe way? Like, how do you experience that as a yoga instructor?
For me, it kind of goes back to the comparison. So I think with diet culture, it's very much a comparisons game. Like it's like, oh, well, this person's doing that, or that person looks like that, so maybe I'll try and cut carbs, or maybe I'll try and do this, or maybe I'll try and do that so I can look like that. So I feel like for me, when that translates to yoga, that's kind of when people are, you know, I'm going to be completely honest, it drives me nuts, like if I'm in a yoga class and I see someone checking like how many calories they burned. And to me, I'm just like, that's not why we're here. Like that could be your motive and that's perfectly fine, but like while you're here, be here. And so for me, I think diet culture has kind of removed that aspect of it from some people. Their goal is more so, okay, how many calories can I burn? And it's just like, that's cool sometimes, but that's not really why it was created. It's more so for, you know, getting in tune with yourself and that kind of thing. And I do understand that's a part of some people's process, but for me, it kind of makes me sad when I see that, because I'm just like, you know, there's so many other layers of this, and like, I wish people were more open to those layers, but I feel like Western society, diet culture kind of is just like, yoga is an exercise. You can do this cool new form of yoga and burn like 500 calories in an hour. And I'm just like, you know, that sucks. Like that's not always what we're here for. I think there could possibly be a healthy balance. Like I've definitely taken some vinyasa classes where I'm like, that kicked my butt, but I can still be present. So I think if like that is your journey and that is what you're trying to do, like just remember to be present in that moment. And then like if you want to care about how many calories you burn, like that's fine. But I think just keeping that awareness where you're at and not letting it divert to everything else. If that, yeah.
Yeah. If you are in practice, so maybe not you specifically, because it sounds like you've set your boundaries pretty firmly for yourself, but for someone who is trying to break out of the diet culture mentality or the calorie burn goal of yoga, which I would say when I first got into it, I think that was more of my intention. I know there's been times where I specifically had a fitness watch on and I set it because I was like, I need to know what's going on here. Clearly things were happening in my head. But like, if you get caught up in the frustration of like, I can't do this thing, like you said, like I could do 4 chaturangas yesterday, why can I only do 2 today? Like, how would you encourage or guide someone if they're getting stuck on that and it's taking them away from the present?
So I always say, I always tell my students to listen to their body and respect it. And so what that means is like, we are going through the chaturangas and you're like, oh my gosh, today's a 2 kind of chaturanga day. Knowing that it's okay. I saw a meme one time that I really liked, and it was like, some days are downward dog days and some days are child pose days. And that is the realest thing I've ever seen, because there have been times where I can't even get through a normal like hatha practice. And I'm like, you know what? I don't know what's going on today. Today's a child's pose kind of day. So I think just number one, it's going to be hard. I think it's definitely challenging, and I even still get frustrated sometimes, like in my practices of like, well, why can't I do it? Well, that person looks better. So I think number one, it sounds crazy, but sometimes I truthfully do my practice with my eyes closed, and I'm just like, because this is just for me. Like, it doesn't matter what that person looks like, as long as you can do it safely and like as long as you can do it safely. Sometimes that works because you are just going through the motions of feeling. I also would tell people, like, leave your phones out, leave them by the door. If it really gets too challenging for you to separate, sometimes you have to take off that fitness watch. I know that's really hard for people sometimes. But sometimes you just, it really comes down to setting those boundaries with yourself, because it is going to be difficult. For different reasons. Like, I think sometimes, like you said, people are going to get stuck in that mindset of counting calories, of, diet culture. But then there are going to be days where you're stuck in the mindset of, that person looks better than me doing that. And it's just like, I think the one thing I learned that really shocked me when I went through yoga school is literally every pose can look different on every different body. Of course, there's a guideline for how you should do it. I'm not going to say there's no right way, but like, it depends on the person, and that's okay if it looks different. So I think the biggest thing is setting those boundaries for yourself. And sometimes it's going to be difficult, but allowing yourself that space to do so. And then eventually over time, you're not going to have to force yourself to take your fitness watch off. Like, you can have it on and you're not even going to think to look at it. You don't have to close your eyes. Like, you can look at the person next to you and say like, hey, that looks cool too. But it definitely takes time to get there. I'm not going to lie, it does. It took me time to get there.
That's really cool to hear that the poses can look so different.
Yeah. Like, I'm not going to lie, so my training was 9 months. Until the end of my training, when I was in downward dog, I couldn't, like, my feet were never flat on the ground. Like, I could only do it on my tippy toes.
Oh, I can't do that.
Like, I could never do that. And like, I would see people and I'm just like, what? Like, is it because I'm short? Like, I don't understand. And then like, eventually over time, I was like, oh my gosh, are my heels touching the ground? And like, I wasn't doing it wrong. That's just how it looks on my body. And it's just like, you have to come to you have to come to the place where you accept that, where it's just like, that's fine. I'm not doing it wrong necessarily.
Yeah. I love that, because I feel like even in like, you know, the like weightlifting, resistance training world, it's kind of like diet culture has stripped us of the intuition with our bodies and like doing it for ourselves, because just how you're saying, like poses can look different on different people. It's like you could get a handful of people doing the exact same workouts every single day, and their bodies are going to respond differently to the workouts and look differently despite doing the exact same sets, exact same reps. And it's like people get so caught up in doing like a workout program or like yoga, for instance, to like look a certain way, when you have to like realize that no, like that's not the purpose of it. And if that's your intent, you might need to kind of like recheck yourself and reground yourself, because you have to do it for you, not for like an outward or external factor. And I think it's like, yeah, that's a beautiful thing to have to, you know, to work towards and realize. And I love that you said that about yoga, because I think it like crosses so many different areas of like of fitness.
Yeah, it does. And I never really thought of that either with like the weight training, and like people do that all the time. They're just like, we're doing the same thing, and like I'm not getting the same results. And it's totally like, doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. Like that's just how your body is responding. And I think people forget that, and yeah.
And if you don't get lucky enough to be paired with someone who's got positive messaging and understands these things, then that just further perpetuates it. Because anytime I think you approach something as a newbie or an outsider to this community, whatever it is, we're like, oh, well, we have this vision of what it's supposed to be like, and this is what I have to do. But if someone doesn't help you understand it's not necessarily supposed to be exactly this, then you're going to feel stuck in that high pressure for performance and feeling not good enough and inadequacy and all that stuff. Like, and that's pretty rampant, I feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And sometimes it goes back to maybe like the professionals should, I 100% think that mental health is in every single avenue of fitness in some way and somehow. And so I think that if more fitness professionals kind of understood mental health better, not even necessarily have to be trained in it, but just like if you understand it and understand the mindset about it and like where we are culturally, then I think that would save and help so many people. Like if we had more Jenna and Dani's to tell people like, you know, you're doing great and it's okay if you're not necessarily dropping the 15 pounds that you expected, like you're stronger or whatever, like it's okay. I think if more people kind of express those feelings to their clients, and I think that number one, we'd be a lot healthier internally and externally. But yeah, there'd be a lot less expectations, I think, held on to as well.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I'm so happy that you have entered the space as a yoga instructor, because like I know you as a person and I know you would never perpetuate that harm, because there's been times like I've taken yoga classes and the instructor was like encouraging us to do some kind of pose and it was physically painful and he was encouraging that, and I was like, but I've always been taught that yoga isn't supposed to hurt. And then I thought about getting up and leaving, but I was like, no, I don't want to be a quitter. And I wish, like looking back, I wish I had had the courage to just get up and walk out of that space.
Yeah.
It was no longer safe. I didn't feel good at all. I was in a lot of pain and I didn't understand why he was like encouraging that. And it just didn't feel like the right vibe at all. And so I feel like even me knowing these things, I still had a hard time getting out of something that was clearly not good for me. And not saying that nothing can ever be uncomfortable, but it was like something we were doing and it was like very, very, very painful. And I was like, this is not it. Like, what am I doing?
No, I always tell people, so like, I typically offer, if I know it's going to be something like a deep stretch or something where it's like, it's going to be a little uncomfortable. Like we all know pigeon's a little uncomfortable. So there's number one, a huge difference between you being in pain and there being discomfort. Because a lot of times the beauty of yoga is like the release you feel after the discomfort, which we could talk about forever. But so there's like, you know, you have to go through that discomfort, and then afterwards it's like all the tension's released and it's a beautiful thing. So there's a difference between the two. But I also typically like, I feel like that's where it comes in, you being aware of the mindset of your students, because it's like when I went through schooling, the number one thing, the job of a yoga instructor is to make your students feel successful no matter what. And so for me, it's like, okay, if we're going into pigeon and I know that's uncomfortable, I'm going to offer a million variations. Like, hey, if you want 7 blocks under your leg, that's fine. Like it might not look the same way as everyone else's, but at least you feel successful and you feel honored, and you're honoring your body, number one. Because yeah, that's where you get in this space of, and it definitely depends on like the lineage of yoga and everything like that. But to me, I think that's where you get in this space of almost back into the diet culture, or almost back into the comparison game, because it's like you're telling them they have to look the exact same way. It doesn't matter what your body's feeling like it needs to look this way. And yeah, that's not really safe. That's not making you feel successful. And then that's just leading people to, you know, either injure themselves or keep on comparing everything they do to someone else. So yeah, definitely do not agree with that. Like, I think always listen to your body. Like, that's what I tell people all the time. Like, I'd much rather see my students in child's pose than in a compromising position where they don't feel successful.
If I'm remembering this correctly, because I make a lot of observations, I try not to be judgmental about that, but of the mindsets of people in the yoga classes I've attended and some of the commentary they'll make. And I remember that they really liked that guest instructor because they liked being pushed like that. And I was like, guys, why? Like, I hope you never teach us again. For me, I'm not coming to that, because I was like, I don't like this.
Yeah. And honestly, you have to know your audience. And like, I will 100% say, because I feel like I've seen kind of both, the yoga audience in like the gym world and the yoga audience in like the yoga world, completely different people. Like, and it's very interesting. Like, I feel like the people in the gym world are typically the ones that want to push, and not saying it's like, again, I love a great vinyasa, but those are typically the ones that are checking their fitness watch, whereas the yogis are typically the one that also like being pushed, but it's more so like a mental pushing. I feel like you're pushing your body, but you're also pushing your mindset, because you have to continue telling yourself like, this is fine, I got this, I can do it. So yeah, that's also been kind of an interesting observation, that you can just see like different motives push different people. Yeah, depending on kind of the niche they're in.
Can we talk about what it is like for you as a yoga instructor being a Black woman? Whenever I feel like yoga is literally always represented by the thin white ideal doing some kind of wild pose, I feel like that's such the classic image that everyone thinks of when they think of yoga, which obviously is problematic for a lot of reasons. But I would love like your insight on that.
So number one, it was really, so I was the only Black girl in my entire like yoga school, whatever, that I went through. And it was really funny, just like a funny tidbit. I thought it was cool because like, number one, I was the most flexible in there. And like, number two, obviously, like I have a little bit of a bigger butt. And so like certain poses, like my butt's sticking out. And I'm just like, this is really funny that like, you know, typically people wouldn't think or see me as a yoga instructor. And I'm just like, hey, I'm the most flexible one in here. That's pretty cool. But no, I personally like the looks that I get. I definitely do get looks because like you said, I don't think I'm the typical like yogi that people expect to see, which is very also interesting to me since yogi did come from people of color. So I just think it's interesting how we've gotten that image over here. And I think that's very interesting. But I've definitely had some people reach out to me personally to kind of spread the awareness or spread the knowledge in my community of yoga. Not that it's not there, but a lot of people kind of do look at yoga as kind of like, oh, that's a female kind of thing, or that's even like a hippie kind of thing. Or there are a lot of, you know, people of color, Black people that wouldn't try yoga, that haven't tried yoga. And I kind of like the spaces of bringing that awareness out and bringing that into their community and letting them know, like, hey, we can use this resource as mental health. Like, these are actually things that we can do. So I think for me, sometimes I've even thought of like, I want girls that look my age, like that look like me. I want girls that are 8 years old in elementary school, like the same age I was, like to know like, hey, yoga's pretty cool. Like you can use it for a lot of things. So I think that's more so, that's kind of the mindset that I've grown into. Like I want to change the way people look at certain things. Cause I remember I had one yoga class and there was like this little girl that ran up to me and she was like, you're so cool. Like, how long have you been doing this? I want to do yoga. And like, I could literally cry because I was just like, this is what I want. Like, I want you to see someone that looks like you. That's like, hey, oh, cool. That's a space for me. Like, that's a space I can enter. So I think for me, I just hope by me continuing doing what I'm doing, continuing being a yoga instructor, just to change the way people see yoga, like change the way, like, you know, the white community sees yoga, change the way the Black community sees yoga. Yeah, I think not that I think it's my job, but I think that would be really cool to kind of just spread that awareness to everyone. And yeah, I don't mind being the one to do it.
That's so awesome, especially for like the mental health aspect. Like that's clearly very important to you. So to bring that awareness to a community that maybe feels as if this isn't something for them, but you know the healing properties, and anyone who can breathe and has a body can practice. So
yeah. And it can be a useful practice, and like it can be a beautiful practice. And I think because we do have that mindset of, you know, like thin white woman like going upside down and all these crazy poses, that's why a lot of like, I did a class with like Black men and it was probably my favorite class because they loved it. And I was just like, yes, like y'all can do these things. Like it's not just what is portrayed on TV or is portrayed in Yoga Journal. Like there's so many different ways that it can look. And I think that just, yeah, it just goes back to, yeah, representation and everything. And I think that's important for us to continue to see people that look like us in the spaces of spaces that we're not typically in, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any thoughts on practicing yoga in a larger body?
Oh my gosh, I love it. Yes, absolutely. I really wish I could remember the name of it, but I saw on Instagram the other day and it was a bigger girl and she like was phenomenal. And I was just like, more people need to see these things. Again, it's representation, because I'm like, it doesn't matter what your body looks like. Like, again, your body is your temple, your body is your safe space. Like, it might look different than my practice, but it doesn't mean you're necessarily doing it wrong. Like, it doesn't mean you're doing it wrong at all. So I personally, I love it when I see bigger bodies doing yoga. I think number one, because sorry, I'm choking a little bit.
Okay.
Number one, because it shows that representation to, again, the stereotypical yogis, that yoga can look differently. I think also, I think that's pretty much yeah, that's like the overall, like, it just shows you that yoga doesn't have to look one way. So like, it doesn't matter what your body looks like you can do yoga. And I think that, I feel like the problem lies more with the people who don't have the bigger bodies than the people who do have the bigger bodies doing yoga. Like, I think I've definitely seen people question abilities because they do have a bigger body. And I'm just like, that's not fair. Like, everyone can do it. Like, again, it might look a little different. And to be completely honest, it doesn't always look a little different. Like, that doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to be flexible. That doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to get within your body. It doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to be mindful. So yeah, I just never paid attention to that. And I always ignore people when they say anything about, like, people with bigger bodies doing yoga are like, oh, you're doing yoga? Like, what? Like, I always just thought that doesn't make sense to me. Like, everyone can do yoga. It's for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome to hear. Not because I was concerned that it wasn't appropriate, but I think there is definitely that barrier and concern, especially when, like you said, the representation is so limited. It's understandable why you would feel that isn't a space that you belong in. And I've had so many people share with me, like, their fear of going to the gym, period. But I think sometimes in certain yoga environments, like, the clothes that people who can afford to go to certain places, you know, the way they wear, what they wear to present themselves, if you don't look like that, it's hard to show up in that space, whether it's your skin color or your body size or your gender. Like, it does make it very challenging. So I love how much you, like, believe in it for all people. Obviously, if we didn't had a question of that, we wouldn't have you on our podcast. It's just nice to hear that from a yoga instructor.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, yeah, I think that's what makes me sad, because a lot of times it comes back to, a lot of times I hear it's not the issue of people not feeling safe in their bodies. It's the issue of them thinking other people aren't going to make them feel safe, or them thinking other people are going to think a certain way. And I'm just like, that, number one, shouldn't even be a thought in any kind of conversation that's including with yoga, because that's like, just goes against everything that it's about. So yeah, that makes me really sad sometimes, because I'm like, I could understand if someone's like, you know, like, maybe is it safe for certain poses? And of course there's modifications and there's always a way, but yeah, I think it's sad, because a lot of times that's not even the concern of their safety. It's the concern of, what are others going to think? Or, you know, what am I going to look like? And it's kind of like, who cares? Like, that doesn't matter at all, or at least it should.
Yeah. And I think
and if it does, find another yoga studio.
And I think it's awesome that you as an instructor have that like mentality, because I think also what stops a lot of people from coming in, whether it's like a fitness class or a personal trainer or like a yoga class, it's like they're also worried about what the person is going to think who's like teaching them, you know, and the judgment that they're going to feel from the trainer or the instructor. And so I think it's powerful, and it's encouraging to hear, like, that there's, you know, that you are in another space and that you are taking on that mentality and approach, because I think it's super important and it's crucial.
Agreed. Thank you.
Sometimes I wonder if, like, I feel there's been certain spaces I've entered for fitness that it seems like everyone in that room is very, very, very similar. But it almost feels as if, like, they like that. Like, it seems like people want to be in groups where they feel they belong, but then, and there's nothing wrong with that, but sometimes, like, it feels, there's just a weird energy to that. And I'm certainly not going to go calling out any particular workout places, because you know, everyone has their good intentions, but there's certain places where I feel more diversity in body size, gender, and skin color. And I actually really like the vibe of that better than when I'm in a room of just all, like, thin white women, because I don't know what it is, but and again, I'm not attacking thin white women. I am a thin white woman, but there's just, do you know what I'm saying?
No, yeah, it's like in those spaces, it's like almost like they enjoy being with people similar to you, but at the same time, that's promoting like,
it's like elitist almost. Like
yeah,
anyone else there.
Yeah,
it's kind of
like,
how it feels.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I don't know if it's because like of me feeling, growing up in a lower income family, maybe I don't feel like I belong sometimes, even though I don't present as if I don't. But I wonder sometimes, like, is that, if I'm picking up on that vibe, like, is that only my insecurity? And I'm like, probably not, because I think a lot of people feel unsafe in spaces that we're too hyper focused on the things that don't matter. We're not there to show up for coming to our bodies. We're there to show off our workout clothes and talk about how it's not our workout in the morning,
Exactly, yeah.
It's so different. It sounds like your practice and the vibe that you create is much more in line with what I like about yoga.
Yeah, agreed. And I think that's what made me so excited about becoming a yoga instructor, because I was like, I can create the spaces that are missing, those spaces that people are searching for. I can be the one to create those, and that's pretty cool. That's how you become the change, I suppose.
Yeah, that's not just cool. That's necessary. It's incredible.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you have any like tips or suggestions for anyone who feels like they're not? I know we've touched on this, but like specific things, if someone wants to get into yoga, like what you would say to a beginner, I guess.
Yeah, so if you don't feel comfortable going to a space, download an app, go online. There's literally millions and millions of videos you can watch. So I always think that's a good starting space, because I'm not going to lie, the first trip to a yoga studio can be intimidating. Even if it's like the most welcoming place, just being in that space of, I don't know what I'm doing. These people could be advanced. Like, am I going to, like, there's just so many thoughts swirling. So I would say if needed, don't be afraid to start at home with your phone, with an app, with your laptop. Like, that's 100% okay. And I would also say try out different yoga studios. Not every yoga studio is going to fit. So like, it's okay to try them out. And I know that can get costly, but there are even some yoga studios that allow you to take like a certain amount of classes for free to try them out. So I would definitely say, like, find the space that you feel like you belong, because the wrong yoga studio can 100% ruin your yoga practice. It can ruin your mindset. It can ruin so I would say definitely find the space for you. And understand that it takes time. Like, you're not going to look like the girl on the cover of Yoga Journal in a month, or maybe even ever, because those aren't always realistic. But like, understanding that it's going to take time for you to, number one, learn the poses. It's going to take time for your body to get muscle memory. It's going to take time for you to become that flexible. Honestly, it might even take time for people to enjoy it, because there are definitely times where, like, yoga is intense. Yoga is a mental challenge, because you're trying to hold these poses, or maybe your body doesn't want to cooperate, or so I think just lowering those expectations kind of, and understanding that it's going to take time. Like, it's going to take time, and just like anything, you need to practice, and you need to allow the space and the time for you to improve it. And I would also say setting an intention for why you're doing yoga. Like, number one, set an intention for each practice, but set an intention for why you're even getting onto your mat. Like, if it's for exercise, that is okay, as long as I think you're in a healthy mental mindset when you're doing so. Like, that is perfectly fine. If it's to quiet everything, that's cool. Like, if it's to be flexible, just know why you're doing it and try and focus on that, because sometimes focusing on your why can kind of assist with quieting all the noise around you. Yeah. And I also think the biggest one is don't worry about what you look like. Like, it's yoga. No one should be paying attention to you. Like, yeah, don't get too focused on your outfit. Don't get too focused on, OMG, I can't bring my leg that high. Like, it's okay. It's fine. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I think just giving yourself time and space and grace are like the biggest things when you're starting yoga. Whatever that looks like for you, just make sure you honor that and stick to that.
I love that.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's very important. So you can get lost.
Yeah. Jen, do you have any other questions?
I don't think so. Yeah, I mean, I was just really curious about the whole mental aspect in terms of like exercise versus like doing it for your mental well-being, which you touched on. And I'm really glad that you shared that, because I think, especially in the fitness space, it's so easy for people to get wrapped up in doing as much as they can just to burn as many calories as they can. And they totally lose the purpose behind doing what they're doing. And I love that that's your mentality around it. Because I've even been in some yoga classes before where you can tell that like the instructor, like, yeah, they're there to like help you in your practice, but also like you can kind of tell sometimes when they're wrapped up in diet culture as well. And they'll make a comment about, not specifically like burning calories, but I've heard very similar to diet. And I'm like, I think this is the point of this, but how are people in your class supposed to do it for the right reasons if the instructor themselves is approaching it in maybe the wrong way?
Yeah, agreed. I think that's very important, because a lot of times the instructor that you stick with, like, their mindset is 100% going to rub off on you.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
So yeah, I think that's also why it's important, to just find like a studio, a class, an instructor that speaks to you, because I think that's one of the worst things in yoga. It's like when you get a teacher and it could be like a great class that could sequence beautifully, but like when their mindset or their philosophy behind it just doesn't match up, that can mess things up, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It sounds like you've kind of recategorized in my head, even though I've had some of these thoughts before. Like, yoga is more of something for mental health rather than it is about exercise. But we've categorized yoga into fitness, and not that it isn't or that it doesn't have those benefits, but like everything you're saying, it's like that's about it. That's healing work. That's mental work. It's not about the calories at all. And that's a cool way to completely even flip the script on it if you're wondering if it's something that can benefit you.
Yeah.
You don't, like, in eating disorder recovery, yoga is allowed a lot, and I think part of the reason is because it's not sure. There's always, if you're worried about those things, there is going to be, the added security that you're moving your body, but the healing properties is I think the reason why that's encouraged so much.
That's super cool. Yeah, I could see that. That's super cool. That's really cool. I like that.
Do you have any favorite resources for anyone who wants to do yoga from home or to kind of dig into it?
Yeah, so I really like the app. I think it's called Down Dog. And they have two options. Like, you can do it for free. But if you do the paid one, and I think it's maybe like $4.99 a month, it's like you literally can decide, okay, what kind of practice do I want to do today? Like, do I want to do like a hatha class? Do I want to do a vinyasa? Do I want to do a restorative? And then you can even put like, okay, what do I want to focus on today? Do I want to focus on breathing? Do I want to focus on, my shoulders are a little tight. Do I want to focus on that? and then like the length of time, and then it creates a practice for you, and it's like the coolest app. So I think that's one of my favorites. They do have a free version as well. And a lot of times, I'm not gonna lie, I will like just follow random like yoga Instagram like accounts that I see, and then I love like, 'cause, you know, a lot of times they'll put out random like sequences or anything like that. I like to save those a lot and see how I can like rework them, or even, you know, like on Pinterest they'll have, here's a 15-minute yoga workout to do before bed. Like those are not bad. Like those are great starting points for people to just kind of get in the motion and the habits of yoga. So there's tons of free things on like Pinterest, Instagram. Those are my best friends.
Thank you. Is there anything else that's on your mind that you want to say or share with our listeners as we wrap up?
I think just if you're going to do yoga, no matter your intention, no matter your reason, just don't forget to honor your body. Like that's the number one important rule of yoga, is to honor your body. And with honoring your body, of course, honor your mind. So whatever that looks like, if that means taking off your fitness watch, if that means doing yoga only from home, if that means, you know, whatever that means to you, just remember to honor your body, because it's your body, it's your practice. You're the only person that this practice is going to benefit. So make sure that you're doing it in a way that resonates and respects you. So yeah, I think that's always my biggest, hey everyone, no matter what you're doing, no matter what your yoga instructor is saying to you, just remember to honor your body.
Anyone wants to reach out to you, is there a way that you'd be okay with anyone communicating with you if they hear this and they're like,
yes,
I need Amani in my life?
Absolutely. So you guys can email me. My email is Amani, AMANI, Holloman, HOLLOMAN .yoga@gmail.com.
Okay.
Yeah, I can answer any questions. If you guys want to do a yoga class, whatever, just I'm available. I'm a good resource.
Yay. Well, thank you so much for this. This was a lovely conversation. I always enjoy spending time with you, but this was really, really, really good. So thank you
I
for
know.
your time and your
Thank
heart.
you so much for having me, guys. I was honored that you guys thought of me. So thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for listening today. As always, we would love if you could give us a rating and review on iTunes, because that helps us to reach more listeners, as well as subscribe. You can find us on our joint Instagram page at Fit Fueled Free. My personal page is DMarliaL, and Jenna's is JenEpFit. And if you want to email us, you can send us one at fitfueledfree@gmail.com. Thanks so much and have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you next week.
Bye, guys.